Welcome on, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 120. You can listen to us wherever you get your NFC East blog podcast networks across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. Wherever you listen or watch, you will hear or see the audio and or visual stylings of myself. I am RJ Ochoa from Blog and the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. And we, Brandon, are recording in our normal time slot. It is Tuesday, July 18th for us. So happy Tuesday, July 18th to you.
How was your vacation, RJ? I saw you having a lot of fun in San Diego.
It was really cool. Kind of the first big vacation with the kid. Turns out going to a lot of theme parks, sort of an exhausting thing. So very, very tired. I'm gonna do the cliche, I need a vacation from my vacation thing. But San Diego, very cool. The weather, incredible. Obviously the heat is taking over everywhere. But it was nice to get a bit of a reprieve from that, eat some good food. Disneyland. I'm gonna recommend, if anybody is ever gonna have a baby, go to Disneyland. Both, so that you and your spouse can sort of enjoy life. You know what I mean? Not that you don't enjoy it, but get one last sort of babyless trip there. But also, so you can see all of the accessories. I don't think I've ever seen as many strollers in one place as I saw at Disneyland. It was I might have seen 2,000 strollers, and I think I saw ours once, which is amazing to me.
Sounds like you had a good time. Did you like the zoo? The zoo gets a lot of hype.
I can understand why it gets hype. I'm not a zoo person. Have I ever given you this take? I'm a little bit afraid of the zoo, if I'm being honest.
Okay, this is not where I expected it to go.
Yeah, in a very light way. I have two really weird fears that were kind of pricked at over my vacation, which is obviously not something you want to do on vacation. But my fear with the zoo is these animals have all day to just think and plan, right? How to get out. You know what I'm saying? Why would I want to put myself there? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think I wouldn't watch it, but a good scary movie to me would be that happening. I mean, I would not want to be there when that happened. And here's the thing, if I was in a room, even with a smaller animal, that's a difficult proposition. I can't communicate with an animal. You know what I mean? I can't be hey, let's talk about this if you're pissed off. You know what I mean? So I really, I went for my son and my family, and we all enjoyed it. It is massive. And the volunteers there were incredible. But yeah, not a zoo person in general. My other fear, since I'm, I guess, embarrassing myself. So we rode a few water themed rides at Disneyland. With my son, we rode It's a Small World, which is just you're in a little boat, whatever. And then my parents watched him, and my wife and I rode Pirates of the Caribbean. I am weirdly afraid of these kind of rides. If it's a ride that's in water or something, you're in a boat, the thought of that water petrifies me. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. And at the beginning of the Pirates ride,
touching the water,
I guess so. Touching at one point, my wife splashed the water on my son on It's a Small World, and I kind of freaked out a little bit. I was kind of whoa, I don't like being in enclosed spaces like that. I don't know if it's claustrophobia, and then the water adds something. But and so when we got on Pirates, I don't know if you've ever ridden this at either location in the States, but so they, you know how you get on any kind of roller coaster and the bar locks on your lap? No bar on Pirates. And so I was kind of what's going on here? Why don't we have a bar? And we were in the last row, my wife and I. So it's kind of the physics of this are going to lend to us being the first ones to fly out. And sure enough, the ride starts and it's pitch black. Literally you're in darkness in this boat, and it drops what had to have been 100 feet. I was petrified. I didn't scream, but I definitely bruised my wife's hand from a terror squeeze. So other than that, it was really good though.
You brought up a point there that I haven't thought about in a long time. Remember, I feel as a kid, as being young, both in reality and pictured in TV and movies and everything, it's oh, you have to sit in the front of the roller coaster. That's the most intense experience. The front seat, no. It's you just said, it's actually the back seat is the craziest because you feel it so much more when you're back there. Used to go on Medusa, which is no longer Medusa. It's Bizarro now, I think, at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey with my dad. We used to have the what's it called, the season pass or whatever. We did that a couple summers. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, and we'd go and sit in the back, and man, like it was crazy how you just feel it all the way back there. That's my kind of roller coaster, by the way. One that like straps you in with the shoulders. I don't like the ones that
Oh,
you're
the
only
like,
in with
yeah,
the bar or the hip, especially being taller. I don't know. There's something about it. I just feel like I'm gonna like fly out. So there's that. And I had to your point about the needing a vacation from the vacation. I guess that's like hacky or whatever played out to say that, like you said. But I mean, it's true, man. Like I think I think we're doing like collectively we're doing vacation wrong. It's my goal next summer to have a vacation where I literally go somewhere and do nothing, like just maybe like a beach resort kind of thing, and literally just go from the hotel out to the beach and back in. No other things, just nothing else. Like that's kind of what I want. I kind of did a little bit of that this weekend, but not quite. Went to Betterton, Maryland, RJ, on the Chesapeake Bay, and had a good time hanging out in the water at a little bay house with some friends. So fun was had. It was a good time, but I was really tired on Monday after getting home late on Sunday night. So feeling better
yeah. I
today.
mean, a lot of people, my family included, you feel like we're at this place we're not normally at, so we got to squeeze in, we got to do everything. So I feel you. We actually kind of chilled on Friday, and it was really nice just to kind of hang out and just sort of live. We traveled back on Saturday too, so we're kind of like planning and prepping for that. It's really nice of you, by the way, to sit in the back as a tall person, all 6'5" of you. Doesn't want to be obstructing the person behind you if you sit in the front row, as an example. But I agree. That's and I'm also like I'm not a hands in the air roller coaster person. Like that's not me.
Same.
Like again, I don't know if I'm afraid of roller coasters or what this is with my like theme park paranoia. But I've said before, if I was like stranded by myself at any theme park, but something like Disneyland with a lot of caricatures at night with everything off, that I think I would have a panic attack. And with it, there's something about water. Like those shows that they have, like the Water World show or whatever, like that's on the like stage in water. You know what I'm talking about? I would never swim
No.
in that water. Like I could not handle that. Like I would never. I would legitimately hyperventilate. So I don't know. Maybe I got to work on this. You know what I mean? But it's nice to be back. Nice to be back in the normal routine. Nice to see you. And
Wow.
we took a little bit of heat for our left guard discussion on last week's
Mm.
episode. There were some people who said that we were acting childish. So maybe that's kind of why we're talking about roller coasters right now. Do you think we've
We
ever
or
been
you?
childish here?
Was I also accused of this,
There,
or was this a
there,
you thing?
there was a comment on the YouTube side of things at APTB that said y'all are acting childish. So
Mm.
we were lumped in there together at least. The NFC is mixtape strong.
I have a little stat for you to kick off the podcast.
Okay.
You ready for it? Okay. So, combined record of NFL quarterbacks. Um, if you go by lowest opponent win percentage in playoff wins among 109 quarterbacks in their career, out of 109 quarterbacks to win multiple games, who do you think has the worst opponent win percentage?
So the record of the teams that they have beaten.
The 18-5 combined record of those opponents adds up to the lowest opponent win percentage in playoff wins among 109 quarterbacks to win multiple postseason games in their career.
To win
So
multiple
basically,
postseason
who has
games.
like the
I was gonna.
weakest? Who is the weakest
Ah,
like strength of victory
well, it's
against
Dak because they
quarterbacks?
beat the below
Yeah,
500 bucks. Yeah, and
18
they
and
beat
15.
the.
It's the worst out of 109 quarterbacks
So you're
ever
saying.
to win
So you're
multiple
saying
games in the playoffs.
this
It's
was.
the worst
I'm
opponent
not.
win percentage.
I'm trying to understand the stats. So you're saying the combined record of the two teams he's beaten in the playoffs, or
Yeah,
the
it's the lowest
2000
opponent win
and
percentage.
so it was the 2018 Seahawks with Brian
Mhm.
Schottenheimer, as we've talked about a million
They
times,
were
and
like
then the
11
2022
and
Bucks.
5, I think, and then
Yeah,
the
and
Bucks
then
were
the
7 and
9 or
10.
7 and 10. Yeah. Okay.
Boom.
Cool. He beat Russell Wilson and Tom Brady though. See, like you can, spin
Yeah,
zone it
I
that
mean,
way.
not
Have
really,
you
but
last thing before we start to get into the actual episode, have you started the quarterback show on Netflix?
no, I have not.
It's really good. I've only watched one episode because I was out. But I love stuff like this, and so it's really cool. Maybe you do want to watch it. Marcus Mariota, new Philadelphia
I'll
Eagle,
get
best
around
quarterback
to
on
it.
the Eagles roster.
I haven't done that yet.
Mm. Are we ready to do this? Are we ready to do the NFC East all defensive team? You ready?
I think speaking of Kirk Cousins, because he's on there, I've seen some people be like, "Oh, he's such a likable guy." I
Uh,
think Also related to the discourse on Monday Football Monday, which you weren't part of this time. It was just Jeremy Reisman and Michael Peterson filling in. I think the Vikings have almost gotten so overrated now that they're underrated. A
Oh
classic
my
Bills
god.
decision. In terms of like the discourse entering the season, like this idea that they're gonna like win, like 5 games or something. I mean, like Kirk's like I don't like Kirk, but he beats up the bad teams. I don't think they're gonna win. Like they're not gonna have like the number 1 pick or something. Like that's crazy.
My take has always been like generally, and I've in the defense of Kirk and subsequently the Vikings, I've kind of like locked in on it. But my defense has always been he is so much better than like the consensus has you believe. Like the consensus
No.
to your point is like, oh, the Vikings are going to win like 5 games. Like no, they're still like a good team.
I don't think they're gonna win the
And
division, to be clear. I think they're gonna win
I
like
mean,
7 games or so, 7, 8. But like I think people
but
are acting like they're gonna win like 4 now.
I still think that he's the third best quarterback in the conference, right? Like we talk about, like, oh, Dak is 2, Jalen's 1. Like Kirk is number 3 to me. Like if you want to put Matthew Stafford ahead of him, that's fine. But like I
If
mean,
he's
he's
healthy,
fourth
then
at
he's
the
definitely ahead of him.
absolute. He's fourth at the absolute worst, and I think that they like my point too is that he gets no credit for anything. They showed. I've only seen the first episode. They beat that super
What are you
awesome
giving him
2000.
credit for?
Well, they you
What
like
has he
you just brought up.
done?
Well, hear me out. Like you brought up Dak's opponent win percentage, whatever, in the playoffs.
Mhm.
Kirk beat that super talented 2019 Saints team, and
Yes.
and it
The
gets, but he
Saints
gets
who
like, I'm
who had so
so
much playoff success.
I'm not saying like build him a statue, but like that little era, that run, the Alvin Kamara draft class, the 17 Saints, like they were really good for a long time. And Kirk went down to New Orleans, which is a notoriously tough place to play, and he had a clutch touchdown to Kyle Rudolph at the end to win that thing. He gets no credit for that. Also, this
It's
is
one
not.
game.
I know, but I'm just saying like he
What
gets
happened
no
the
credit
next
for
week?
that. Okay, well, hear me out.
What happened the next week?
They played an amazing 49ers team that went to the
How
Super
many
Bowl and
passes
got
did
blasted.
Jimmy Garoppolo need
Okay,
to
again,
complete to
like,
beat
see,
Kirk
this is what you're
Cousins?
doing. You're like, oh, he stinks. No, I'm just saying, like, he gets no
He
credit
lost
for
to a
that.
quarterback who completed
They
like 8
also
passes.
last year we have done this with other teams. We've been like, oh, this team like hung with the Lions. They beat the Lions last year, and they authored. And granted, they fell down. They authored literally the greatest comeback in NFL history last year.
Okay.
Again, to do that, you
Getting
have to fall
down to the
down.
Colts was like pathetic, though.
I'm just saying, like, but nobody gives him credit for anything. So that's really all I have to say about Kirk Cousins. But it is
They
an
should have never
enjoyable
been
show.
down to the Colts like that. That's pathetic.
It is kind of amazing. I mean, it's only been one episode. It's really just the Mahomes cousin show because Mariota kind of, wasn't that great with Atlanta last year. He's a super interesting person and it's, fun to watch him. But like, as far as the football, it's really just the Mahomes cousin stuff. So I highly recommend it.
The most bestest team you could possibly create. That's also, you're laughing at that turn of phrase there, but I think that's how, isn't that what like Little Caesars calls their pizza?
I don't know.
It's like
We can
the
ask the
extra,
aforementioned Matthew Stafford. He's
it's called extra
he's
most
sponsored on it.
bestest. That is literally like the branding of their one of their pizzas that they
I don't
have
endorse
there.
it. Anyway,
Anyway,
it is time for the All NFC East defensive team. We did the offensive edition last week. Next week, we'll kind of do special teams and coaching staff, what with training camps kicking off. And then it's just kind of like the grind for 6 or 7 months. But anyway, so you and I talked about this, Brandon, what positions we were going to field on this defense. You embarrassingly left out a linebacker, which was kind of sad. So we're going to do two defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles, 2 linebackers because nickel is the new base, 3 corners, obviously, and 2 safeties. All understood?
yeah, and just for clarity and context here, I don't remember if I said this in the offense episode. Like, if I think it's always makes the most sense to shape these teams around the best players in the division. So, like for offense, let's say if the wide receivers were all just really kind of like bad or mediocre, then we'd only do 2. And let's say in theory, like if Travis Kelsey and George Kittle were in the NFC East, we would obviously run 12 personnel as our all-star team. But yeah, so there's a little discussion I feel like needed here just to clarify how we're going to attack this one.
We're good roster managers. You know what I mean? Like we adjust to the talent. We don't force players and talent to fit our scheme. So we are the Kyle Shanahan, so to speak, of all this. But anyway, so okay. I think we have some weird kind of like, we can put players where we want to because like we don't need to go by like where our lads has these players like listed or whatever. But so we'll start. I think I wanted to go defensive end. Like I wanted to go kind of maybe not left to right, but just like along the line. So like end tackle end. If that was okay with you.
No.
You just want to do both defensive ends at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's
That's okay.
important.
That's fine.
And I don't even have them as defensive end. I wrote down as they're edge rushers. I mean,
Yeah, just pass
that's the best
rushers.
way to put
Yeah,
it.
whatever you want to call them, but the two are Micah Parsons and Hassan Reddick. Like
Yeah,
that's the answer. Like
definitely so.
there's no way that you can make an argument for anybody else. It's been an interesting kind of turn in the NFC East. Like Chase Young's like not even in this conversation because I would like my first guy out is sort of DeMarcus Lawrence, but if you're prioritizing getting to the quarterback, whatever, we don't have to have this discussion. BLG loves some BLG. Obviously, you could talk about Josh Sweat. You know what I mean? You could talk about a lot of different players, but like that's what I'm saying. Like Chase Young is nowhere near the conversation. Obviously, didn't get his fifth-year option picked up, but this might be the easiest one. Micah Parsons and Hassan Reddick.
I mean, two more players have more sacks than Hassan Reddick since the beginning of 2020. That is Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. Reddick has 39.5. I think he had 19.5 last year, including playoffs. I mean, he's pretty awesome. He's a bargain on his contract, and he wasn't there at OTAs, and I don't have any evidence to say he's holding out, but that's something to monitor. I feel like because he signed, it's crazy that he was available to be signed last year. He only signed for 3 years, 45 million, 30 guaranteed. That's bonkers of a value relative to pass rusher money is basically almost like quarterback money, and this is very much at a good rate. So yeah, Reddick certainly deserves to be on here, and it's interesting that both of our edge rushers are these linebacker types as opposed to being that more traditional 4-3 defensive end kind of player.
Like your DeMarcus Lawrence. Yeah, like the physical build of him is what I'm saying. But
I mean, if these guys were on the same team, that would be that would be pretty crazy.
Well, you're secretly obsessed with Micah Parsons being on your favorite team, so you want that
we
to
don't
happen.
Need him. But if he wants to play for his hometown team that he loves, he can.
But on the Hassan Reddick note, just quickly, I would love to see him hold out just because I would love to see the drama of it. But I also in all likelihood, we talk, this is so true for so many Eagles, which is what we've talked about a lot. But will he have another season like last year? If you're playing the odds game, will his earning potential ever be, or will his leverage ever be as high as it is right now? If our job were to advise him, yeah, I would be like, dude, you have. I said this at the time after the Cowboys traded for Amari Cooper in 2018, he should have absolutely held out. You know what I mean? He should have absolutely, because he saved that team and there was no way he was ever going to completely match that. And he didn't. He was still really good. But you know what I'm saying? There's no way he will ever hold as much leverage as he does at this moment in time.
Let's set the over under for Hassan Reddick sacks this year at
7.5.
He has 39.5 in the past 3 years. So let's set that at 13.2. So I'm doing that as opposed to the half. So the half, is in play there. So do you think he has more or fewer than 13.2?
So he obviously had 1 million last year. He had 16. He's only hit over that once in his career, and it was this past year. So I'll take the under. I mean, he's in 2020 he had 12.5, which is still really good. But I mean, it's really hard to do
here too. By the way,
I'll still take the under. It's just really hard. I mean, it's really hard to have that, and some of it isn't even his fault. It's just opportunity. You know what I mean? And other things, and getting game planned for. So, yeah,
But you would take the over on 10.2, right?
Yeah, I mean, because he's gone over that, each of the last 3 years, just in the regular season. Micah Parsons, our other edge rusher that we're taking, he's had at least 13 in his 2 seasons, 13.5 last year, so a bit of an improvement. So let's just use that same figure, 13.2.
You're right, exactly.
I'm going to take the under as well because, but some of that is because of the way the Cowboys are going to be with him. You know what I mean? They're, I think, a little stingier with, opportunity for him in the regular season because they know how important he is. We've seen them really do that, just kind of prioritize the rest of players. So that's what I mean by opportunity. And he's completely capable of it. I just don't think he'll have the chance because the Cowboys will put him on ice at every opportunity that they can.
He did kind of fade quietly later in the year last year. No, am I wrong to say that? Didn't that kind of happen there?
I wouldn't say fade, but he was really in the thick of discussion for defensive player of the year. So if you kind of just go off of sack numbers, so he had 2 against the Giants on Thanksgiving. And I would say that was the peak of his, it's going to be Parsons or Bosa. And that was when I lost that bet to Fooch and I had to tweet that thing. And that was really dumb. But then, so that was Thanksgiving, the 2 against the Giants. From that moment on, he had 1.5 sacks throughout the rest of the regular season. And the half sack was the regular season finale against Washington. So like
Yeah.
he was still amazing and still had the same impact, but he lacked the like pizzazz, defensive player of the year type moments. Like that part of his resume fizzled a little bit.
Yeah, if you expand it to the playoffs, it was only 2.5. He had 1 in the Bucks game, but then 0 in the 49ers game. So like not, I'm not saying he's like bad all of a sudden, but he did kind of go a little bit quiet later
And
in the year.
that feeds my like their idea. And he
Right. That's why I
obviously
brought it up.
played a lot more. I think he was like 81% of his playing time was spent at edge rusher last year. So I
Mhm.
mean, they know his value, and they're not gonna waste him in like a week 4 fourth quarter. You know what I mean? If they have the game in hand or whatever. Plus, they have a bevy of pass rushers. You know what I mean? So they don't have to like get every last drop out of him in the earlier parts of the regular season. So I'll take the under on both.
All right, we'll go over to defensive tackle now, where I think this is also kind of. I think there's only 2 right answers here. I have Dexter Lawrence. He's obviously coming off like an incredible season. He was awesome for the Giants last year. Really kind of impressive how he evolved as a player. Because I remember when he was like considered a or when he was a draft prospect, he was being more considered as like run stuffer guy. And all of a sudden last year, he became much more than that with 7.5 sacks. And I don't even think the stats totally do or the sacks justice for him, where he was also at 28 hits. Like that's a really high number, especially considering he'd only been at like 11 and 10 the previous couple seasons. His tackles also went up from being in the 50s to 68. Like TFL's career high 7. He was second. He's all pro second team. He's a Pro Bowler. I mean, I think it's Dexter Lawrence.
I agree with you. But it was not as it was closer than I thought it was, at least. I agree with you. Like, he's my first pick. Like, if we're drafting
Yeah.
defensive tackles for this team, like, he's
Yep.
definitely the first one that I want on the group. But I thought that the gap between him and my second choice, and even like kind of my first player out, was slimmer than I anticipated going into this. Dexter Lawrence is awesome. I think there's an argument that he's the best player on the Giants. We haven't mentioned this at this point in the episode, but it's worth mentioning just very quickly that Monday's franchise tag deadline passed. This obviously impacts both the Giants and the Cowboys, specifically at the running back position. Neither Saquon Barkley nor Tony Pollard got long-term deals. Tony Pollard does or has already signed that franchise tag, so he's obviously playing for the Cowboys, but Saquon hasn't. There was a lot of discourse from running backs across the NFL in the aftermath of all this. So I don't know that I believe Saquon will hold out, but that is a factor, obviously, heading into the season. But even then, like, Lawrence might be the best player on the team, right? Like, there's a strong case for that.
And who else would it be? Who are you taking over him? As Bear chimes in. Bear doesn't like that answer. I mean, am I forgetting anyone? Like, you're not going to take Daniel Jones over him. Some people would probably say Saquon, but no, especially when you're considering positional value in there. I don't know who else it would be. I mean,
That's what
Darren
I'm saying.
Waller.
Like,
If Darren Waller is like actual, like in his prime, Darren Waller, then you have a conversation there. But that's not like
it depends how you like
guaranteed.
really answer the question. Like, do you define best as like the player you would most want, or do you find best as relative to their positions across the NFL? Like, is Dexter Lawrence a better defensive tackle than Saquon is a running back? Because if that's the question, then Darren Waller does have a chance, because like the door for like being the third or fourth best tight end is much more wide open than it is for Lawrence or Barkley to climb their respective positions. You know what I'm saying?
Last thing I want to say about Lawrence, who is nicknamed as Sexy Dexy on Pro Football Reference, canonical nickname. It's crazy how, like, I talked about the run stuffer thing. He's 6'4", 320, or sorry, 6'4", 342. That's pretty crazy for a dude that big to be getting 7.5 sacks. Like that's another reason why I'm taking him here. It's like, that's like a special kind of profile that you have. A guy who's that big, who's able to get pass rush production, that's not just a given. The other guy, I think has to be. I've talked about how I think he could take a step back this year.
Let me go first, please.
Okay.
So Dexter Lawrence is number one for me. I think we agree. The second choice is Deron Payne.
I think you have to, based on the season he just had.
Right. So you mentioned Pro Football Reference. Their approximate value has Dexter Lawrence as a 13 for last year, and Deron Payne also as a 13. But Jonathan Allen was a 12. I think Jonathan Allen is much closer to this than I really thought. Like, he was my first guy out, and we've like known that forever. Like, that's kind of like Washington's thing or whatever. But yeah, the 11.5 sacks for Deron Payne last year. Like, he had a loud season. Like I think he earned the spot this year. But like, I agree with you. Like, I would not be shocked if a year from now, if like it's one of the Washington defensive tackles, if Jonathan Allen leapfrogs him again. I know you don't like Jonathan Allen, but like it's
No,
closer
that's
than
not
we
true
think.
at all. I think it was tough for me in terms of like, am I not giving enough credit to Jonathan Allen? I think you could argue Jonathan Allen's body of work, is better than what Deron Payne has put forth. Whereas Deron Payne's more of a, could be more of a flash in the pan 1 year thing, and we're rewarding him based on that and not so much the body of work. So I do wonder about that, but I think he had 11.5 sacks. I think you can't just sneeze at that. I think you have to give him credit for that.
Give me 1 second. Keep going. You got this.
So obviously it's not Fletcher Cox. Jalen Carter has potential, but is by no means a proven thing. He could conceivably be here next year if things go really right this year, but that's also a lot to prove there. RJ's not here, by the way, for the audio listeners, but now he's back. Cowboys certainly not in this mix.
My gosh. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just gonna be mean. Yeah, I mean, maybe Mozzie Smith like shows up. That would be like their fast. Although I do think Osa Odigizua is an underrated player, but that's a different conversation.
He was my underrated player, but yeah, he's not on this ilk yet. He has he has to make a big jump in this will be year 3 for him to kind of get in that conversation.
I didn't want to bring this up. So like we were like, oh, Lawrence is like easily number 1. And I'm like, this isn't all I know. But this isn't like all about sack numbers. But Jonathan Allen had as many sacks as him. They both had 7.5. You know what I mean? And again, they're closer than we think. Like this is a closer than it feels sort of position, or at least discussion for these 2 players or 3 players. But I agree. Of the 3, I'd rather have Lawrence and Payne.
But again, this thing about the profile though, like the sacks at Dexter Lawrence's size, I think is just so much more impressive. And again, I think the quarterback hits were also higher and much higher in Lawrence's favor as well.
So, okay, defensive line is Micah Parsons, Hassan Reddick, Dexter Lawrence, Deron Payne. Done.
Yeah, pretty good defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, hard to be upset about. And every team is represented. Of the first 4, we have one from each and every single team. How cool is that? Okay, so linebacker is up next. I think the first choice is actually really obvious. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased, but I do think it's Leighton Vander Esch.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great division for linebackers. I mean,
right.
Do you
sorry, but you brought this up in the chat. Like we're like at off-ball linebackers at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Off-ball linebackers.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like Leighton is like the vintage version of that. You know what I'm saying? And he had a really great season last year. Like I think he is easily the number 1 choice here, like the least debatable one. There is a slight debate after this, but he was awesome. Like he was awesome at defending the run last year. He got hurt and the run, support really kind of, regressed for the Cowboys, and then he returned and things stabilized. It was a big deal. They were able to bring him back. He's really kind of shed. I know I just said he got hurt, but he shedded that label that he couldn't stay healthy. Really ever since the Cowboys drafted Micah Parsons, Leighton has kind of been the pinnacle of health, save for that little stretch last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's a Pro Bowler, right? I mean, he literally hasn't been since his rookie year, but above average starter at linebacker, which there really aren't many of those, if any others in this division. So certainly he gets the nod. Eagles don't have anyone that would qualify. Eagles might have like the worst linebacker core, at least one of them in the NFL, depending on what becomes of Nakobe Dean and my guy Christian Ellis. And then Commanders, I mean, Jamin Davis has been like disappointing. Who else do they really have?
He's the only. My second spot is down to 2 contenders, and Davis is one of them. And my other, I guess we're at this point in the conversation, is Bobby Okereke. I know you're not fond of him, but like it's down to the 2 of them.
Relative to the division, I am fond of him.
Well, so Davis had 3 sacks last year, which is impressive. I mean, as an off-ball linebacker, whatever. Had way fewer tackles than Okereke. Okereke forced a few fumbles. So depending how much more stock you place in that, I'm inclined to lean Okereke. So that's my personal pick. Even though I think, again, kind of a thin sort of argument.
0 career forced fumbles and 0 career interceptions for Jamin Davis. Like I know it's a simple way to put it, but I really need some kind of playmaking for my linebackers, and just to have none it's a non-starter for me.
I agree. Okay, so that was pretty simple. So linebackers, Leighton Vander Esch, Bobby Okereke, and I feel wrong because it violates my adding a new player thing. I really don't like
That's
that.
not a real rule. Everyone in the
I
comments
know,
is also like, "Why is this a rule?"
I know. I mean, I will say I'm kind of walking it back a little bit. Like I feel less passionate about it, but I feel obligated to defend it because I said it at one point in time.
Have you been playing the NFL crossover grid at all? By the way,
I didn't know it was like out. I know that I mean we mentioned Pro Football Reference. I know Pro Baseball Reference like supports the baseball one.
I think it's
But
just baseball reference.
or whatever. But either way, like it's supported by the reference company. I don't think the football one is. I've never seen this, so you can send me the link
Yes,
and I'll
correct.
do it.
Only the baseball, but there's a couple ones. There's like it's like NFL crossover grid. I think if you Google that, been doing that
Uh,
one, and there's also
this is
like Dynasty Daddy. There's
this
one
this is
from
like
them
when
as well.
Wordle came out, and then like a million spawns of it happened, and it was like
Well, I like
audio
playing it.
versions. It's
I like
fun. I agree.
playing the NFL one. I can't do the baseball one. Like that's
Yeah,
too.
it's,
I
it's
I
too
don't know
difficult.
baseball as I
He said while
I say
wearing a
it's.
Phillies
I know,
jersey and hat.
but I legitimately don't know like other
Right.
teams. Like I
I
know
agree
some
with you.
Phillies stuff, but I can't get like I don't know who's on the Mariners. Like in the and the Mariners and the Guardians. Like I have no idea. I can't tell
By
you.
the way, we went to a Padres game when we were in San Diego. Super awesome. Like very different vibe from Minute Maid Park, like super kind of progressive and modern ballpark. Amazing food options. Like
Gas Lamp Stadium, or
it
it's in the
was
what's that?
Petco Park.
Petco Park. It's in the Gas Lamp District. Is what I'm thinking of.
Actually, I should mention this. So it was they'd had a giveaway, which it was at the end of the game, which I don't like. You shouldn't force people to stay. I mean, I get it, but you should do when people are
Wait,
walking in.
giveaway at the end?
Yeah, it's like you should
That's
give people.
insane.
That's what I'm saying. You should give people the thing when they're walking into your stadium, not like make them stay till the end of the game, whatever. But it's fine.
Especially baseball. Yeah.
But so it was a kids giveaway, which again, super cool. But like, there's a lot of
Also, even less sense. Kids
well,
can't last the whole game.
yeah, but that's I mean, whatever. So it was a little mug, like a little like kind of coffee cup, and it had a bear on it, which was cool because our dog, and the bear was wearing like a Padres uniform. And so I was pushing my son out the game in the stroller, and he handed me a box, and I wore a Cowboys T-shirt to the game. It said America's team because Cowboys are America's team, and the guy gave me another one. He said, and here's another one for the Cowboys. So that was kind of cool. So so we walked away with 2 cups. That was unexpected. So shout out to
Phillies
the
just
Padres
took
guy.
3 of 4 from the Padres, including sweeping a doubleheader. So there you
Yeah.
go.
So cornerbacks is where I think we should do corners before safeties. I don't know
Well,
if
are
you
we gonna
agree.
take a break here?
Okay, let's take a break and hear word from our sponsors. Welcome back. We were gone for how long, Brandon? 3 hours?
Here's a really good pro tip for you.
Mm,
Do you have a Costco membership?
I
Do you
do.
have Costco down there? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where it is. Costco membership. Get in there. I don't have one. I went to Costco on Friday as we're going down to the day, as I
To
mentioned
Myrtle
earlier.
Beach in Montana or wherever it was, right?
No, Betterton in Maryland on the
That's close.
Chesapeake Bay. I was going down with our good friend and friend of the show here, Holden, who does
Holden,
have
Astros beat the Phillies in the World Series. Just
who
so you
he
know.
doesn't care. Who does have he literally just like could not care less. Has a Costco membership, and this to me is a life-changing thing that everyone needs to get in on. And
Costco?
it is
You know what Costco was?
hold on. It is to get
No,
their
Holden is his name, not
yeah,
hold on.
that's his name. No, hold on. Is the mac and cheese they have, the one that's like
Yeah, you bake it.
yeah, you just bake, you just put
Yeah.
it in the oven. It's basically almost prepped. And then what you need to do with that is get, and I don't know, if, I'm sure they're not all set up like this, but the way this one was set up was like the mac and cheese was across like the aisle, kind of from the section where they had a ton of dips, like
Yeah,
basically
like
like any kind of like tzatziki and salsa and like just a whole array of dips, including buffalo chicken dip. And let me tell you, you take that mac and cheese, you put some on your plate, or if you have it in the tray, whatever, you mix it with that buffalo chicken dip. Oh, it's a great time. You
I
gotta do it.
I don't really like buffalo sauce all that much, so
You're
this
missing it,
wouldn't
man.
this wouldn't be. Well, I'm happy that you explained the tip for everybody else, but like that's a bit of a miss for me. By the
Mm.
way, on the subject of the of buffalo dip, I guess, and obviously buffalo wings, I'm super excited. I know you did the hot ones challenge. I'm super excited to watch the Harry Kane episode. I
I
missed
did
it.
it again. I
Oh my
did it
god!
on Saturday night because we did it with the group at the house, and only 3 people made it. Shout out to Holden and the aforementioned Holden and Jess for making it through. And there were some reactions for sure.
on
People are losing their minds.
I mean, well, the bomb, obviously.
Dude, the bomb, I said it before, but it really does suck. Like it just punches you in the face and it sucks.
On the subject of all this, so I had never seen the Paul Rudd episode until recently.
What? It's like
Well,
the
I know.
most
Well,
the
I mean, I
meme.
understand that, but like, it's just like
Look at
it was a
this.
it was a it was a bit of a like a pop culture like hole in my sort of arsenal.
It's probably
But I
the
finally
biggest meme from Hot Ones, or at least one of them.
right. The like look at us. But I went and watched it, and like that dude was like respect to Paul Rudd, man. Like he was like, and also the idea of cauliflower wings. Like I get it if you're not eating meat, but like man, that just like because it also like allowed him to like eat it like a whole like nugget. It was just really I was really exhausted for Paul
That's
Rudd.
easier, I think, the nugget form as opposed to nibbling and getting like the heat on your
That's
lips and also
fair.
touching it. If you have a fork,
Touche.
yeah, you can do it. You can use the fork and the nugget or the boneless. It's still painful. Don't get me wrong, because I did both. I did the first time I did the bone in because I feel like you have to like officially beat. That's like 100%ing a game. Like you have to do the bone in if you're gonna 100 if you're gonna fully complete it. But I did the boneless the second time because like I didn't need to prove again that I could do it. I wanted to make it a little bit easier, and it was a little bit easier. But by the end, it was still I still needed the ice cream. I still needed the milk.
Um, Good for you. Okay, so doing corners first, right? Then safeties.
We'd never
Um,
cut corners here.
mm, so we're doing 3 corners, as we
Three
said at the top.
corners.
And I don't know if we want to do like I mean, I know we did this to like receiver a little bit, but like I'm 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 personally finally just kind of picking the best corners as opposed to like because like who's the best like slot corner in the NFC
Hmm.
East? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that was tough.
it's a valuable position, but like if we're ranking the slot corners, then I think we're leaving off a really good one. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like that's what I'd rather just take the 3 best, and I feel better about that as opposed to like, well, let's take the 2 best outside corners and leave off a good one in the name of having a slot corner on this team.
I agree, unless like there's just overwhelming evidence they can't play in the slot for some reason. Someone has to theoretically at least have displayed or is just so good that you could like project that. Like for example, Rasul Douglas here in Philly. Like I don't think he would have made the list, but he was clearly this big guy who was not a slot corner. Could not change direction inside. So like if you're putting him in there in that scenario, that wouldn't really make any sense to me. But let's talk this through. Who do you have first?
Do you just want my why don't like this isn't like a ranking, but my first name was Trayvon Diggs. Like that was the
Mm,
first name I wrote
of
down.
course it is.
Well, I mean, duh. Like, do you know what my job is? Like, so that was my like. Is he not on your list? Is he not among your 3? Like
I
again,
do,
this
but
isn't.
I was also trying to be fair.
Well, I mean, so if we're trying to be fair,
But
I
you
don't
think
know.
he's the best cornerback in the division?
I think so. I think
Wow,
he's.
wrong.
I think he's a top 3 corner in the NFL. I think he's the best in the division. I think the second best is probably James Bradbury, who's on my list as well, obviously. Now I'm going to say I don't have Darius Slay on my list, and that's
Wow.
because you have slandered him so much that you have ruined. Not that I had a promising one, but like you have impacted my opinion of him. And so, like,
Mm.
that's like, I don't think we can have in good faith to the mixtape. I don't think we can have Darius Slay because he's been so destroyed here. And you've gone on many times about how his interceptions that he has had are against all these trash quarterbacks.
True.
Like, I don't think it would be genuine to have Darius Slay. So my top 2 players I'm placing on the outside, if I have to, kind of rank it that way, are Trayvon Diggs and James Bradbury.
That's also who I had, believe it or not. I just want to note on Bradbury, he allowed the lowest passer rating in the NFL last year. And he did that despite seeing the 6th most targets of any cornerback, because even though I think Slay is a little overrated, not a bad player, but overrated, he does have respect from other teams, which says something. But it also, I think they can be wrong sometimes. And they didn't always want to throw at Slay. And it didn't really work out for him because, again, Bradbury allowed the lowest passer rating. He had a ton of pass breakups. He had 3 interceptions, which is more. And I think he actually had 4 if you include the playoffs. That's more than Darius Slay's 2, double. Darius Slay, or no, Slay had 3 too. I guess, yeah. He had 3 because he had 2 in the one game. Okay. Still, Bradbury still had more when you include the playoffs. And also, Darius Slay was not second team All Pro like James Bradbury was. The All Pro voters, which is like kind of more prestigious, as we know,
Sure.
than a Pro Bowl, like they recognize that Bradbury was the better player, which is I think saying something. So yeah, I'm good with James Bradbury, and also he's younger. So if we're projecting this team and what they're going to do this season, I think there's a very good chance they might both fall off or one of them falls off. And if I have to make that bet, I'm going with a slightly younger James Bradbury.
I also would add to the Bradbury discussion here, and you'll appreciate this, the vibes, right? Like of the 2, and I said this, and like I don't mean to bring this up again, but like I think it's super impressive that James Bradbury, and you can contextualize it how you want, but like as soon as the Super Bowl's over, it was holding. I held, I got caught, whatever. As opposed to the
That's
way
not
like
what he said.
Okay, but like generally, you get what I'm saying. Like he took ownership. However you want to like verbalize it. He took
Yes.
ownership versus Darius Slay, who's like everybody sucks, everybody's wrong, I'm right, blah blah. Like he's had a lot more drama in his career than James Bradbury has. And so, like again, the vibes are like, do you not gravitate more towards James Bradbury than Darius Slay? That's my point.
I do. I think people are getting on me for this. They're like, "Oh, BLG such a Slay hater recently," and I'm going to only add fuel to the fire there by pointing out recently Darius Slay tweeted, he quote tweeted this account that was like, "Would you rather have a Robert Ory type of career or a James Harden type of career? Championships or money?" And then the graphic shows Robert Ory pictured with his championship ring, 7 of them. He only quote unquote only made 54 million, or would you rather be like James Harden, make 300 million but have 0 rings? And Darius Slay tweeted 300 millions, me please and thank you. So like, look, I get it. Like that's a lot of money, and I can't blame anyone for wanting 300 million in a vacuum. But also, like, it seems so tone deaf to me. Like James Harden right now, out of like maybe all his career, is perceived more than ever as a loser. No one wants him. Like he was going to opt out of his contract and hit free agency with the thought he was going to get a payday. He didn't do that, and he couldn't do that because there wasn't a market for him. He had to opt back in, which was not like the expected path for him. And now he's demanding a trade out, but no one like wants to give up anything for him. And he's coming off of this playoff series where like he had a couple good games for sure, but in Game 7 didn't show up at all. Game 6 didn't really show up a lot. So like, why
Okay,
are
all right,
you?
enough with Harden. Your point is made.
But the point is,
You're,
yeah. But the point is, like, why are you like comparing yourself to that player right now? Like, there's this. I
I
don't know.
mean,
It seems
I
like
don't think he
weirdly
was
tone
comparing
deaf to
himself
me.
to the player, but like, I mean, I get your point.
Yeah,
It's
but why
kind of
would
the
you? Why
well, it's
would you
like
be like, oh,
it's
I
like
want
the
to be like
fan.
him?
I mean, I agree with you. It's like the fan question of like, would you rather your team win one Super Bowl and suck for 20 years, or like be a playoff team for 20 straight years and never win the Super Bowl? You know what I mean? Like, and I also don't think the question is fair because it's not like Robert Ory was like, just hanging out. Like he was a big part of as a Spurs fan. You know what I mean? Like he had big moments. Like he had the best version of that kind of career that anybody
We don't
really
make
could.
54 million by being a scrub.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. So, but anyway, yeah. So Darius Slay, not a part of my list. On Trayvon, the other corner that's making the list, I think Trayvon is I don't know if you've like covered it this way, but like a great case study or example of what Slay or Bradbury could kind of experience in 2023, like the regression, so to speak. And we said this, like this was the only way regression showed up for the Cowboys last year. The argument was like he's not going to have 11 interceptions, which he did in 21. It was like that's never going to happen. No way, no how. And he only had 3. I say only, but I mean, so since his rookie year in 2020, he has 17 total interceptions, 2 that he has run back for touchdowns, although both of them were in 2021, obviously. Back-to-back Pro Bowler, which isn't as prestigious as being an All-Pro, but he was a first-team All-Pro in 2021. And I've said this many times, he had way fewer interceptions last year than he did the year prior, but he was a much better player and a much better cover corner. The rap on him and his like all or not, like aggressive or whatever, that really subsided last year. He was a much more physical player. He had this great physical stop. It was early in the season on Jamar Chase that really helped kind of win that game for the Cowboys. Like he is evolving as a player. And you talk about holdouts and things like that. I'm a little on alert for that. Of the contractual situations for the Cowboys, that's the one that is the like most fire that they're playing with, because he's entering a contract year. And so we'll see what happens with camp starting and whatnot. And obviously Stephon Diggs can get out of his contract in Buffalo next year. Like it makes sense for them to kind of position themselves together strongly. He obviously had a situation about a month ago, but Trayvon Diggs is, it's hard to be this way when you play for the Cowboys, but he's a kind of underrated player because so many people have latched onto that one narrative.
Who's the third corner? You're going to say Gilmore.
So I looked at Gilmore against Slay because I wanted to be fair because he was a productive player last year, and against our guy, Adoree Jackson. We've been really high on Adoree for a long time.
It's not Adoree. I like Adoree, but it's not him.
No, well, I mean, he was the third guy. Like if I had to,
it's either Slay or Gilmore, though, to be clear.
So if we look at their seasons last year, do you know how many interceptions? Do you have something break?
No, it sounds like someone's just honking their horn very loudly outside, which is cool.
So Slay had 3 interceptions last year. Do you know how many Gilmore had? Do you have this in front of you?
I was going to say like 2, and then
he had 2. He had 53 solo tackles to Slay's 40.
So of course, teams were running more against the Colts than they were against the Eagles because of the game script.
if we include vibes, which is not totally fair, Gilmore is like a universally loved, great, super amazing teammate. He's obviously not his defensive player of the year self. I do feel like this is kind of a coin flip, which is why the vibes, because Slay has done a lot to kind of hinder his candidacy, as we just discussed. So I'm fine if we agree that it's Slay, but there's definitely a strong case for Gilmore. Gilmore also violates my "you have to be on the team last year" rule, but again, we've
I
already
think
broken that
you
here.
have to make a concession at some point if I go with Gilmore here. I think you have to give me Landon Dickerson at left
Oh,
guard if I'm saying it's Gilmore. Then I'm going to
I
say
don't.
it's Slay.
I mean, I'm fine saying it's Slay. He was very productive last year. I mean, like
Also,
there's
the age thing concerns me with Gilmore as a real point. So the thing I think working in Gilmore's favor is that I could think we could have him be our nickel cornerback because he kind of did some of that. I feel like, didn't he? When he
yeah.
was the defensive player of the year, he was like lining up everywhere. That's part of what made that campaign especially impressive. It wasn't like he was just like on the outside locking guys down. Like they were moving him all around, and he was like going up against like tight ends too and like locking them down. So I do think you have the argument for that. But he's also older, and that concerns me. Um, so it's tough. I think it's a coin flip, but Darius Slay is a little bit younger. And for as much as I think he's overrated, I don't think he's a bad player. And because you can't have Dickerson, I think you can't have Tyler Smith over Dickerson and this. I think you have to give a concession at some point.
This isn't a concession for me. Like I think it's fair to involve Darius Slay. So I'm sorry that you don't
All right, then
get
we'll go
the
Slay.
little. Okay, I'm sorry that you don't get the little joy that you wanted.
Slay also, I will give him credit for, at least in the past. The Eagles haven't done this as much, but he has had a track record of shadowing guys. So he is also someone I think who can follow receivers around, including into the slot.
I think if Slay just went about things a little bit differently, we would perceive him a lot differently. You know what I'm saying? Like
It's hard to insist to be called big play Slay.
that's
to
literally
me.
what I was about to bring up, because you brought that up before. Like so, and
also
and
be literally like the highest paid player on the team, or at least like highest cap number on the team, and then have 0 interceptions. Like I think he just gets too much of a pass, man. 0 interceptions since week 6 when he picked off Cooper Rush.
You just said he had to be ahead of Gilmore. I mean,
I do.
Well, I mean, so I think this is so far of the players we've picked, and we have 2 left, but of the 9 we've picked, this is the least stable Jenga piece to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I think like I would bet highly on at least Gilmore leapfrogging Slay if Gilmore's on the Cowboys next year, or in the division. But like
for what it's
Slay,
worth,
he's the least stable piece to this tower for me, Darius Slay. But I mean, I think he deserves, because we've talked. This is an exercise that is heavily weighed upon what you did last year, and Darius Slay was a very, very, very good player last year.
If you go by the NFL Insiders thing, which ESPN has been putting out, the rankings
right.
compiled by executive coaches, scouts, which isn't gospel, but is worth looking at. They actually have Slay as the 5th best cornerback in the league. They have Trayvon Diggs down at 8 there, and then both Gilmore and James Bradbury are in the also receiving vote section. Interesting that James Bradbury wouldn't make at least like honorable mention, but it's a tough field though.
I think he gets like the Robin rap. You know what I mean? Like and Slay gets the Batman one. And there's like
the
a
Robin
boost.
rap, and also the Super Bowl
right.
Like being especially harshly punished for that because it was such a visible moment.
I mentioned this, and also shout out to our friend Tim, the whiskey influencer, for this, who brought it up with the aforementioned Landon Dickerson and Tyler Smith argument. But Pro Football Reference's approximate value metric for last year. So Adoree Jackson was a 4 and Gilmore was a 5. Just again, like I think Adoree was worth mentioning his name at least. But Slay was an 8. That's what I'm saying. Like it's really it's not hard if you're looking off of just last year. Now, if you are extrapolating and considering a lot of other extenuating circumstances and factors, the conversation becomes much larger for Gilmore, but this makes sense. So we have 2 safeties. And I do want to say, I talked about this to you or with you in Slack. There's an argument for like, if you don't love Bobby Okereke or whatever, and you want to have like the safety linebacker hybrid, like there's an argument for Jaron Kearse in that role. I don't have Jaron Kearse as one of my 2 safeties. That's the only way he would have made the team for me if we had, done things like that. Like you talked about fielding the best possible group. I think that's a discussion, but fine, we didn't. That being said, I do think the best safety is still a Cowboy. I think it's Donovan Wilson. I think he has to be the first safety that we put on the team.
I'm looking at the NFL insider rankings for offensive linemen, and interesting, I don't see Tyler Smith's name anywhere here for either tackle or guard.
Seriously.
Whereas Landon Dickerson is honorable mention in
free
guard, so that's just worth mentioning. The safety thing is really tough for me. I don't think there's a very
I have three
I
names
just
that were at the very top of my list, so I had to pick two of them. And I don't know if your two are from here, but it was Donovan Wilson, who was
I didn't
easily the
have
best.
Donovan Wilson on, but like that's a name that you would have so much more. Like I don't think anyone else is paying attention to him outside of the
Okay,
people who
my
are
other two, I
watching him weekly.
imagine, were in consideration for you. Cameron Curl. Again, if we're
Who
throwing out names for consideration, and Xavier McKinney, those are my three names that I kind of like debated. Philly has nobody that's in the mix here, and I mean
uh,
Malik. I
no,
mean,
they don't this year, but Reed Blankenship's player watch. He was the 10th highest
okay,
graded
but
safety.
that's not the conversation that we're
Yeah,
having here. This isn't like a projecting into the future. This is based like off of current players, what we know, et cetera, et cetera.
agree.
So of these three, Donovan Wilson has the highest AV. He actually has the best like statistics all the way around of all three. He played
What
the
is
most.
his AV?
It's 6 compared to Cameron
Okay.
Curl's 4 and Xavier McKinney's 3. Now McKinney, what made it hard for me, and I'm fine putting him on because I think he's a better player than Curl, but he only played in 9 games last year. You know what I mean? So like, and that's tough to kind of like feel great about. But again, there's not a lot of options here.
Yeah, I don't think we can go McKinney because of that. I do agree that like because that's significant. I think he gets
Also,
dinged for that.
Also, Wilson is a weapon. Like we haven't added the coaching staff yet, but I would presume that Dan Quinn's going to be the defensive coordinator of this group, and Dan Quinn has really unlocked him, and is a big reason why Wilson also got a new contract from the Cowboys this offseason. He had 5 sacks last year. 5. Like I mean, he's a playmaker. You know, with the way his coordinator uses him, he had 2 forced fumbles. You know what I mean? Like he is making an impact on deep. Like that's what I'm saying. He has to be the first player that we add here.
So the Cam Curl thing is interesting. He was actually PFF's second highest graded overall safety last year, which is a little surprising to me, especially when you remember how I talked about earlier with Jamin Davis that like the 0 interceptions and 0 forced fumble thing in his career. It's kind of tough for me. Well, Cam Curl has 0 interceptions and 0 forced fumble in his last 28 games. So you're not really getting like playmaking out of him, which isn't everything. I think there's something to be said for being in the right position and not allowing big plays, which seems to be the case for him. But like, it's just tough for me. And here's a player you didn't even mention and it was in my most underrated players when we did that episode last month. Like Derek Forrest could be in the mix here. I mean, he had 4 picks last year, 2 forced fumbles. He allowed just a 75.4 pass rating when targeted. He only missed 3 tackles relative to making 88. That's like really good. So he's a good tackler. And you cited approximate value, right? What did you say Donovan Wilson's was?
It's a 6, and he's a 5 to your point.
Yeah.
So he's the second highest. Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
so
and
like,
if we look at it, everything,
I have a tough time going Forrest over Curl. Like it doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, I mean,
you might just have to do it.
If we lean things out too. So Forrest played all 17 games last year. Curl only played 12. But in that same time, Curl had more solo tackles. And almost as many tackles overall. He had way more tackles for loss. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Curl might be the better player, but Forrest has the better resume from last year. I still think it's Curl. I mean, personally, and he's got like a longer. It's not a long one, but he's got a longer track record of being like a underrated, good kind of not talked about enough sort of player.
Do we want to kick Okereke out and put both Curl and Forrest and Wilson in? Because can't Wilson play a little bit of linebacker?
No, that's what I'm saying. If we're doing that, then I want to put Jaron Curson. I mean, like that's the real like safety I want playing linebacker, not one of these two dudes. So if you want to kick Okereke out and put Curson, I'm all down for that. But
I guess I think we'll just have to disrespect Forrest and say it's not him because I just think it's tough to be like, yeah, it's Forrest, it's not Curl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a slam dunk, to be clear, but I do think the answer is Cameron Curl. And so, I mean, it's close, but like you can only have 2 safeties here. That's the way we designed this thing. So, yeah, and Reed Blankenship just isn't there. Not Reed Blankenship, goodness gracious. Man, I don't know why I always who's the kicker that I'm thinking of? Rodrigo Blankenship, right?
Oh, I guess I don't know. I have no idea.
Are they related?
No. Are you serious?
Is that his name?
Yes.
Man, there's such a unique last name. Have you ever heard that?
They look a lot alike.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, that is this is actually a Google thing.
I mean, isn't Rodrigo Blankenship what's his background? Yeah, he's Brazilian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like,
Reed Blankenship is like He's not Brazilian. I don't think I don't
No,
want
but
to make
if you look,
assumptions, but I don't think
if
he's
you
Brazilian.
if you look at their profile pictures, like they're just like general ones, like I mean, if you told me they were cousins, I would not be shocked. I mean, that's all I'm saying. But
Maybe through marriage, but not yeah, I don't know.
okay, so we agree it's Donovan Wilson and Cam Curl. Are you ready for the totals? So
Yeah, I
our
was just about to do
team,
that.
defensive line: Micah Parsons, Hassan Reddick, Dexter Lawrence, Deron Payne. Linebackers: Leighton Vander Esch, Bobby Okereke. Corners: Trayvon Diggs, James Bradbury, Darius Slay. Safeties: Donovan Wilson and Cam Curl. The Cowboys lead the way with 4 players. The Eagles have 3. Both the Giants and Commanders each have 2.
Okay, so a little bit closer, right, than the offense, because the offense was at, what did I have that at?
I forgot already.
I had well, you messed it up by shoehorning Tyrant. Wait, this
By
is
being
from.
accurate and correct.
Wait,
And
I actually have it here. Sorry, I was looking at a further back version that I had to compare. I'm pulling it up right now. Here we go. We actually have, I think we had Eagles 5, Cowboys 3, Giants 2, Commanders 1. So
so
overall, the Eagles still have the most with 8 total. Cowboys have 7, the Giants have 4, and the Commanders have 3. If we're talking
we
offense and
haven't done
defense.
specialists yet. I mean, let's hold
Yeah, I
off
mean that's
on
not evenly weighted though. It's not like it's not the
when
same
we
as
do
offense and defense.
when we
But
do
yeah,
specialists. We're gonna do what? Kicker, punter, and returner.
yeah. I mean, like
Yeah, we don't need to do a long snapper. No offense.
I think it's just punt returner. I don't think we're gonna do because kick returns don't really exist. I
Well,
think in the
that's
NFL
just
anymore.
general returner. Like call it what you want, but like if you know what I'm
But I
saying, you
think
got to
it's
pick one
weighted
returner.
towards punt return because again,
That's
there's like
fine.
kickoffs are becoming extinct.
That's fine. Our punt returner who can also field kickoffs. So
Because the Eagles have different
okay.
ones. Some teams have different ones. It's a different skill set.
Okay, so that is our All NFC East defensive team. Congratulations to all of the players. What will they be receiving in the mail as a method of congratulations, Brandon?
I don't know.
The answer that you're looking for is a link to the NFC East mixtape playlist, which is
Hmm.
something that we curate each and every single week. You, myself, Rachel, we all add a song to our growing playlist. The time has come to do that. Rachel responsibly submitted her song already. Let me find it here because I want to read exactly what she said.
Yeah,
She said,
topical.
yeah, she said, with the Barbie movie coming out on Friday, it's only right that I choose Barbie World by Nicki Minaj and Ice Spice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good pick by Rachel, as always.
You're gonna
Rachel
see
was
it.
just in Cancun, by the way. Shout out
She
to
was.
Rachel.
Rachel is a world traveler. Are you gonna see the Barbie movie? I guess Rachel is.
I'm not a big movie guy. You know that. They're too long.
Are you gonna see Oppenheimer? Oppenheimer?
I mean, maybe like eventually, but I have no plans to rush to see it. The only thing I really have time for, because I feel like I need to keep up with it, because I like the continuity of it all. And I'm a completionist, is the Marvel stuff, because I feel like I have to. I'm in too
Right.
deep that I can't just give up at this point.
Right. I'm in too deep. The faster we're falling, we're stopping and
Is that your
starting,
song?
we're running in circles again. It would be my song
Wow, we just got
if this was a
DCMA'd. What's the term?
it would be my song if this was American Pie. You know what I mean? Because that's like the song that's in every single American Pie movie. But that's not my song. Do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first? What do you
You
want?
can go first.
So we recorded last week's episode very early, thanks to you. You were very kind in adjusting to me, and we recorded it before the recent re-release of Taylor Swift's album, "Speak Now." Now here's the thing: I am picking a song from the album, the re-release version, so Taylor's version. Music is we've kind of talked about this before. Music is so powerful with how it can transform you, and transport you. You know what I mean? Like a song can transport you to a different time in your life and immediately make you feel like different emotions and things that you were experiencing then. And I think that's really unique about the Taylor Swift re-release stuff. So this album, Speak Now, I saw this tour with my friends at Minute Maid Park, actually, the aforementioned in Houston, and it was when I was in college. Like it was just like so when I was re-listening to it, just took me back to all those times. It was I hadn't been like transported by music like that in a very long time. So I am picking not Speak Now. I'm picking Sparks Fly, Taylor's version by Taylor Swift.
Do you like Gold Rush by Taylor Swift?
What?
Do you like that song, Gold Rush?
What are you talking about?
Isn't that a song by her?
I don't think so. Is that one of the new ones on the? Because I haven't listened to the whole. I just listened to the old.
The third song on
stuff.
her 9th studio album, Evermore.
I'm not a big fan of the like most recent albums. Like those haven't hit me the way like the 2010 to like 2014, 15 albums did.
a lyric in that song, quote, with my Eagles t-shirt hanging from the door, which she confirmed is a Philadelphia Eagles t-shirt. So you're a big Philadelphia Eagles supporter fan, basically, is what you're saying. All right. Anyway,
Okay. So what do you got?
my pick is a little off the radar, off the grid. Sometimes I like to listen to some instrumental music. And I'm going to go with, and I think this is our first instrumental only song on the playlist.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with L1011. That's the name of the band. EEL space TEN space 11.
You're going to have to Slack me this.
I'll send this to you.
Okay.
L1011. 3 different words. And the song is called My Only Swerving. And it's a good, I feel like, driving song, especially more so, not like a highway driving song, more like you're cruising around the neighborhood, maybe going to the grocery store or something. It could be like a night driving song coming back from, I don't know, somewhere, dinner or whatever. It's a little groovy song that I think is fun. So give it a chance. Give it a listen.
Okay.
That whole album is really good. The whole album that song is from, but it's actually the first song that kicks off the album. So if you like it, listen to the whole thing, but just that song to start.
Great call on getting a wordless song. Instrumentals always slap. My favorite one actually is from Pirates of the Caribbean. It's the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song, which you would think like the fact that I like it would mean I wouldn't be scared on the ride, but can't conquer that fear for whatever reason. So yeah. Wow, we're getting DMCA'd for everything. Like, do we just want to sing Barbie World too? Okay. I thought
it's funny because when I was hanging out with Holden and Elizabeth this weekend, they started singing the mixtape intro, and at first it took me a second because I don't listen to, I don't always listen back to the intro. Sometimes I listen to parts of the show, but I don't like listen to it from beginning to end. So it's funny when I'm hearing that because I'm like, wait, what is that? Why does it sound familiar?
I guess. I mean, that really isn't that funny to me, but
I like it.
I was gonna say when I was reading Rachel's message and she said like with the movie coming out, I thought she was gonna pick Barbie Girl, not Barbie World. Dude, seriously, like, are you just like, you just want the episode to die? Like, is that what
I mean, that was within like what? It's like 5 seconds. There's a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
For use.
Okay. Wow. Let's chunk deuces. As we leave, Brandon, tell us your 3. We talked about buffalo dip. 3 favorite dips, in order.
That aren't buffalo chicken dip.
Yeah, ascending order that aren't buffalo chicken dip. Ascending order. So 3, 2, 3, 2, 1.
Order. So like,
but buffalo chicken dip is excluded from this conversation.
Ascending order. So you mean like least favorite of the 3 that I like?
Right.
Most?
3, 2, 1. Right.
Man, there's a lot of dips out there to think about. I'm gonna start with maybe like a French, like an onion dip, like ones that you would dip like just plain like Lay's chips into
little packets into the sour cream, mix it up, right?
That's really good. You can go to town on that. Number 2, I'm gonna say pizza dip. I make a good pizza dip.
Pics or you're lying?
Huh?
Pics or you're lying? When you see pictures of this, we need pics or you're lying.
Oh,
when you see pictures.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were saying like one word. I couldn't understand. I don't know if I have any pictures, but I think I do. Post that. Number 1. A lot of pressure here. Does a sauce count?
No. Unless it's in a shape like a dipping.
I just went to this place, like, I got a jar of, you could use it as a dip if you really wanted to. I'm counting it. It's like this truffle aioli. I'm counting that. You could dip crackers or chips into that.
I've said this before. I don't like how wing places serve their dips, or like whether it's ranch or blue cheese, whatever you want, even ketchup, I guess. Whatever you're going to dip your wing into. I don't like how they serve them in round containers. That this is a very passionate stance of mine because you can't get it all in. You certainly can get the flats in. Like maybe for the drums, you can get like the heavy part of it. But like what we need are rectangular containers so we can kind of like twist it through so we can get the whole wing, dipped out. That's something that will revolutionize the world.
All right. We're done.
Say we're done again.
We're done again.